Hello everybody, welcome back to Lifting the Lamp. So I have decided to do a third video on the Matrix and the real Matrix because I feel there's more to say on this topic, and there's more for me to say in a way that refers back to, if not the movies themselves, then the source materials for the Matrix films. Now, before I begin this video, I do want to warn you that there are spoilers for the Matrix trilogy, so if you haven't seen them yet, do see them because they're good films. I mean, the last two have people quite divided, but the first film is definitely a classic. But be warned that if you watch this video before you watch the Matrix trilogy, there may be some spoilers for you, so just keep that in mind. In my last two videos, I've spoken a lot about the Vedanta schools and the idea of Maya. I've made a brief reference to samsara in Buddhism, which is a similar idea. I've spoken about karma as well, and there's explicit references to the idea of karma and paying one's karma in particular the third Matrix film. But I've spoken extensively about those spiritual ideas now, and there's more to be said about the Gnostic message in the Matrix trilogy. In fact, in the original trilogy, there's one scene in The Matrix Reloaded where Neo and Trinity come out of the elevator in Zion, and there's a crowd of people who are asking Neo to watch out for their loved ones, and there's a woman who says that she has a son on board the Gnosis. And that is an explicit reference to one of the traditions that the Matrix films is tapping into and referring to, which is the Gnostic tradition. The tradition of trying to overcome the limitations of the physical world, of the physical universe, in order to achieve higher knowledge or gnosis, and in order to help the soul to escape what the Gnostics really saw as the prison of this world. Now, if you watched my previous video, which I will link in the description below, you will see that from my perspective it is an extreme position to take to say that any sort of physical existence or any sort of structured existence is oppressive or a form of imprisonment. That is a dualistic way of thinking, which is itself a form of Maya, dividing everything into strict categories of good and bad, black and white. And the very end of the Matrix films deconstructs the narrative of strict Manichaeanism, of darkness and light. This sort of way of existing is freedom, and this way of existing is oppressive. And I think that that's the correct view to take if we're truly going to escape every layer of illusion that reality has to offer, reality so-called. But this Gnostic view of the universe, where physical reality is a prison, is referred to by the Matrix. And the plot and the characters of the Matrix create a narrative that is very similar to the Gnostic narrative of the way the universe works. You have the human race who are trapped in this false reality, which is presided over by these inhuman intelligences, which in the Matrix trilogy are the machines, but in Gnosticism were the archons, who more or less were the angels of the planetary spheres, whose job it was to keep humanity down and make sure that they could never spiritually ascend high enough to be greater than the angels and to reach the true heavens above the planetary spheres. And there's even a demiurge type figure at the very end of the Matrix Revolutions that Neo needs to confront in order to be plugged back into the Matrix to confront Smith. The architect is another demiurge type figure in the Matrix. And then of course we have Neo, who is the embodiment of the Christ principle. And the Gnostics believed in a form of the Christ, but it was very different to what was put forward by Orthodox Christians. And there was a lot of variation in what different Gnostic sects believed about the nature of Christ. And so there is very strong and overt references to Gnosticism in the Matrix trilogy, but the Matrix in turn is based off another series of graphic novels which also refer very strongly to the Gnostic worldview, and that is The Invisibles by Grant Morrison. Grant Morrison is a practicing occultist, and so he's well versed in some of the ideas of the Western esoteric tradition, including, it would seem, Gnosticism. And The Invisibles, the plot of The Invisibles is very similar to that of The Matrix. There's even a character who is like the One, who gets discovered by a mentor who has glasses and is bald and dresses quite similarly to Morpheus. And there is a false reality that people are trapped within, which is presided over by these inhuman creatures that are trying to keep humanity enslaved. But rather than being AI, rather than being intelligent machines, in The Invisibles, they are spiritual entities. So they are much closer in form and substance to what the archons were in Gnosticism. And so that is just another reference point which reinforces the fact that the Matrix was referring to a Gnostic worldview. But as I said at the beginning of this video, the conclusion of the Matrix trilogy challenges the assumptions that the Gnostics would have had about the universe, that physical existence is all bad, and escaping physical existence and the cosmos of the 7 planets to reach the pleroma of pure divinity is pure good. There's perhaps a more nuanced view that we can have of our place in the universe, but undoubtedly we should be aspiring to that which is higher, in our own good time. So that concludes everything that I wanted to say about the Matrix and some of its biggest influences and what we can learn from it as spiritual seekers. So thank you again for listening.